Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD podcast. We'll be right back with today's Wednesday Wisdom guest, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, the Florida Coaches Coalition, the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, and We Coach. These are great organizations that you should be a part of. And now, don't fast forward. Take about 3 minutes and listen to our podcast sponsor messages. They're all great sponsors. You should be working with them as well. We want to say thanks to Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com. Start creating custom content for your school social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the podcast, and use our code ADPOD10, and you'll get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to Huddle.com and change the way that you see the game. At Huddle, they're going to provide you, your coaches, your teams, and your athletes with the tools that you need to help them perform at the highest level. Huddle is going to provide you with a complete professional-grade solution to the challenges that you face as an athletic director. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, and see their tables and their boards in action. They not only create income for your department, but they also generate the ultimate game day experience for your athletic teams. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Check them out today. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. That's snapraise.com, and check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. There's Snap Connect, Snap Manage, Snap Store, and of course there's Snap Raise, their fundraising platform that we've used with great success at our school, and you can too. They even have a program where you can get your fundraising money before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anybody else offers that. You can find out more by going to snapraise.com, part of the Snap Mobile family. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They will show you how to set up and sell tickets for all your events, not just athletics, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager from Hometown that's providing you hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and get started. Simple and easy online ticketing. That's hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They've got a mission to help you bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is an interactive touchscreen video console that's going to highlight your student athletes, both past and present, along with your best students in academics and the arts, and help you tell more compelling stories to your stakeholders. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their products. And when you're ready to purchase, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake, and you'll get 5% off. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms. Whether you're an athletic director, a superintendent, or an IT pro, Final Forms can help you have your best season ever. Help reduce risk, increase safety, ensure compliance. You can meet state, district, and department requirements and communicate better with coaches, parents, and student athletes. You can find it all at finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake. Get started with Final Forms. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out how they can create a custom survey for you and your school. Athletic directors typically only hear back from that 2%, the squeaky wheel parent or a frustrated athlete. And we need to hear back from that 2% to help us make effective changes. But you also need to hear back from that 98% that really love and support your program. And that's where Athletic Surveys comes in. They're going to create a custom survey for your school that allows you to take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. You can find it all at athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is a new member to the team, Dr. Jen Gellock. If that name's familiar, she was a podcast guest a while back, just really did a great job sharing her story and some best practices. And I wanted to invite her to join our team, and she very graciously accepted. She's currently professor at the University of Tampa's Sport Management program, has a tremendous background as an athlete, as a coach, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her venture, which is called Inward Athlete. But first, Dr. Gellock, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me back, Jake.
Well, again, we shared a little bit of your bio, but let our listeners know who they're talking to. And then I think most importantly, why they should reach out to you and find out more about Inward Athlete.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jen Gellock, and most recently, I'm going to be leaving academia, which has been a home of mine in higher education for the last 12 years. So I'm currently an assistant professor at the University of Tampa in sport management. I have taught almost every course in our discipline, but I enjoy teaching the management and leadership courses, sociology of sport. And before I became a professor, I worked in college athletics. I worked in student athlete services at Central Michigan University, worked as a college basketball coach at St. Leo University, and just had quite an interesting path to beginning of my business, what Jake mentioned, Inward Athlete. And it all sparked from my own personal experience of being a high school athlete, a three-sport high school athlete, but starting sports, I think, when I was 3, 4, and dancing my whole life. And when I got to college, I didn't know even how to make friends without playing sports. So I had a really hard transition to going to college, and it only came to me in retrospect why my transition was so hard going to college is because I was an athlete my whole life. That's how I identified myself. And I had a whole loss of community around it and an identity loss. So I found my way in working in athletics and finding new passions, but it's also what has sparked Inward Athlete. I have a huge passion and Inward Athlete and our mission to help all athletes thrive in life after sport. That's our mission. So I guess I could talk a little bit more about Inward Athlete. And something I want to bring forward today is the uniqueness of Inward Athlete, in that obviously all athletes in transitioning to life after sport, whether that be going from high school athletics to not competing anymore in college, or from college athletics to not competing anymore in high school, meaning in college, or professionals not competing anymore at an elite level, all athletes are going to go through the same transition. However, each experience is unique, and each athlete's journey is unique through that experience. So I have designed Inward Athlete to help provide a framework to move athletes through similar things that they are going to go through, but make it a very individualized process for them to unpack that experience. And there's kind of 6 pillars for Inward Athlete and the initial transition to life after sport that I have developed. And the first thing is for all athletes to honor their athletic career, to celebrate it. I always make the analogy, say you spend 20 years in a relationship with someone, whether that's a friendship or romantic, and you just at the end of the day kind of said, okay, I think we're done here, and you just went on your way, right? There's some emotional processing that needs to happen. There's some celebrating of all the good things that happened, and some things that maybe, I want to leave behind. So I help athletes move through that process first and foremost. Then there's the identity piece, right? There's a social identity that we build as athletes to be part of a group, to be recognized for, to be celebrated for. It's usually how athletes the first thing they tell someone about themselves is that they're an athlete. They're going to go through some sort of identity shifts. And I help athletes move through that process and how to identify themselves through their values so that they're making value-based decisions no matter what role they step into. And then there's going to be maybe a loss or a sense of purpose that needs redirection. We put so much passion and drive into our athletic careers. How do we send and transfer that passion into a new area of our lives? And this is a good time for athletes to try a lot of different things that they might not have had to when they had a lot of time in their athletic careers. And also thinking about a career, right? We also want to have some financial impact in our next phase of life, especially those going from high school to college. What do I want to study in college, and how do I make that decision? Because most of people just want to say, oh, I'm an athlete, I want to work in sports or athletics, but there's so many other jobs and occupations out there that could be explored. Um, leadership is a huge trait, right, that athletes have. It's what employers want to. A lot of employers specifically try to hire athletes because we have so many transferable skills, from interpersonal skills, from knowing how to work on a team. And part of Inward Athlete and my framework helps athlete understand their unique leadership qualities that they were identified for by their coaches and their teammates. And then how do I transfer that and talk about that to the workplace or in any sort of area of my life, and really transfer those skills. And the fifth one is lifestyle changes. Athletes are going to go through huge lifestyle changes, from their physical, from their training, to the nutrition and body and food they put in their bodies, their social support and their network, and their connection to self. So we navigate all those different lifestyle shifts, how they're spending their time, and to really have a plan, which is the last pillar, really have a plan in place so that when these lifestyle shifts do happen, some emotions come up, whether they're good or bad, that we know how to move through this into our next phase of life. So those are like really the 6 pillars of this framework that I have built to help athletes on their individual journey move through this life after sport transition, what I call it. And then as an educator, and something that I have personally gone through and had to learn through all of my 20s, I incorporate a lot of mindfulness tools into the program, which is called Inward Athlete Roadmap, is the first kind of course that I have or framework that I'm talking about. Um, I incorporate mindfulness tools, and when I say that, I mean is to help someone move through a really hard or stressful life transition. So the 3 tools that I really embed into the program, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, is first, how do we use our breath, how we can center ourselves using our breath. I teach breath work, visualization meditation, which athletes already kind of, some of them do in their to peak performance as athletes. And I kind of transfer that skill into, okay, how can we use visualization and some meditation into processing what's going to happen next? So I take athletes through some visualization process. And the last one is journaling and stream of conscious journaling to really unpack our athletic experience and then what happens next after athletic experience. And just for example, for how to identify our values, I take athletes through a leadership and authentic self value identification activity where we stream of conscious all of, and what I mean by that is just free form writing. Like I ask you a prompt, what is something you admire in a leader? And I ask athletes to just write on that for 3 to 5 minutes, and whatever comes out. And then who am I as a leader would be the next prompt. So then we collect all this data. There's about 10 prompts that I use. You have all this data, all the things that you look at to do as leaders, all the things that you're seen for as a leader. And then you go and identify, oh, these are all the values that good leaders have. And these are the things that I want to embody in my next phase of life. And how can I use that off the athletic field? So that's just one example. I think my teaching background really helped me develop this business and this program, that I can move into being a practitioner in a new way and adding some really cool experiences and activities from my own personal experience, from my research, and then just from my teaching lens as well.
We talked about that. I forgot to unmute myself. We hear about, the athlete transition, from a professional athlete, and now in recent years, about college athletes. You and I talked about this before. There's so many more high school athletes that when their high school playing days are done, that's the end of their competitive athletic
Yeah.
career. So certainly, the number of individuals that might need this is increased. Why do you think that this has become much more prevalent, or maybe we're just more aware of it now? But what are your thoughts? You were an athlete, you've been at the college level before. Why do you think we're hearing about this more now? And again, how can our listeners get in touch with you to find out more about some of the services you provide with Inward Athlete?
Yeah, I think there's a few things there, Jake. The first thing, like you said, I think we are just becoming more aware of mental health, emotional health, willing to have conversations around those topics, right? Rather than just like shove it all down. Is
Right,
I
right.
think just as a culture, we're just normalizing talking about these things, and that it's hard to go through this transition and to acknowledge for the athletes that it's a really hard transition to go through. So I think it's just becoming more aware and normalizing it, which I'm so glad for because it is a hard transition to make. And like you said, for high school athletes, there's a double transition happening there. They're not playing their sport anymore, which is something they were recognized for a long time, probably in their life by their parents, their coaches, their community, and they're probably most likely going to college in most cases here in the United States anyways. And so that's a double transition to make, and navigating all those life shifts. Um, and there was something else that I wanted to say to that.
Well,
I lost
I'm
my
sure
train of
you're I'm
thought.
sure you're 100% correct, is that the student athletes were always facing that, that identity. Well, geez, I'm no longer an athlete anymore. What do I do? Who am I? You also talked about the identity that sports can provide. You're part of that group. You're part of that tribe in a good way. You're part of that gang in a very good way. And those life skills, the dedication, commitment, sacrifice, team player, collaboration. That's what employers are looking for,
Mhm.
people that have those types of skills. So appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And as you were saying that, the other thing I want to talk about is just our generation and our culture changing and society as a whole. For example, like when my parents went to work, right? Like they both worked the same job for, their whole career.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that with the athlete transition piece, athletes are more willing to explore what is my purpose, what is my passion, because that's what my generation, millennials and the Gen Z's, right? We're having more conversations about life satisfaction. It's really important if you're going to be working many years of your life, right? More than half your life, that you want to be satisfied in that. So I think we're having more conversations about connecting athletes to another purpose as well, so that they can have high emotional well-being and physical well-being in the next transition of life.
No, again, spot on. I can see it with my own kids who are in their 30s. My wife and I, we were career teachers, 40 and 41
Yeah.
years, and we loved it.
Yep.
Okay. But,
Yeah.
our kids have had different and have ongoing developing careers themselves. Great point.
Yeah.
I know you're incredibly busy, but we want to let our listeners know how they can find out more, how they can get in touch with you. How do they do that?
Yes. So the first place would be to go visit the website. It's at inwardathlete.com, www.inwardathlete.com. This is same for the Gmail, inwardathlete@gmail.com. If there's any coaches out there, I can come in and speak to athletes or your teams. That's a service that I provide about moving into life after sport. And I really like to co-create that with athletic directors, coaches. If you want to have that conversation about life after sport and what that transition looks like, how we can kind of co-create something to have an experience for your athletes together. And then on Instagram is where Inward Athlete is putting a lot of social media right now. It's the main platform we use to speak with athletes and also parents of athletes. We like to reach to them about, the transition that, or any caretakers of athletes, I like to call it, ADs, parents. how to kind of care for an athlete going through transition. And then we have a program beginning May 1st. It's a 7-week experience for all athletes, high school, college, or professional athletes that want to move through a group experience of moving into life after sport. It's going to be once a week for 90 minutes, but the curriculum is going to be given to the athletes all in advance. I say curriculum, but it's really just like these are the things that I created this program for. If I could tell every athlete the things that they would need to know moving through a life transition, that's how I created this. And I get a lot of athletes. I wish I had something like this when I was going through my transition. So if you are there, a supporter of an athlete or like I call a caretaker of an athlete, coach, parent, administrator, a lot of athletes don't know they need this until they get 5, 10 years down the road and they're like, wow, I could really see how that transition was a hard period for my life. And I wish I had some support to move me through it so that I could connect to my purpose more, make the lifestyle shifts a little bit more easeful, find my community and the things that mattered to me in this life after sport. Yeah.
Right. Again, you're absolutely right. It's been there, it's there now. And if we can help our student athletes, that's what we should do. Dr. Jen Gellock, the founder and director of Inward Athlete. Thanks so much for sharing on Wednesday Wisdom, and all the best moving forward.
Great. Thank you so much.
For our listeners, we do this every week and just about every day with new content. We also upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back next Wednesday for another segment of Wednesday Wisdom. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for listening to today's segment. Before we go, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Athletic Surveys, Sideline Interactive, Gipper, Hometown Ticketing, Huddle, Snap, Mobile, Final Forms, and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. We only have 8 sponsors, and they are all fantastic. You need to check them out. Also want to give a shout out to our partners, We Coach, the Global Community of Women, and the Florida Coaches Coalition. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast.